Okay, get ready to be thoroughly entertained with part 2 of this little window and door restoration job. So as you can see, the glazing bars between the door and the window do not align, which means the latch side of the door had well sagged. So in order to achieve square, I needed to take the door off and measure diagonally across the door in both directions, and the difference in the measurement would tell me how much it needed to be adjusted. So in this case, it was 30 millimeters, which means to achieve square, I needed to square the door up on one corner by 15 millimeters. So to do this, I needed some leverage. So it just meant removing all the old screws that had been put in by somebody in the past to try and square the door up, and then removed the 2 bottom wooden panels as well, which gave me a little bit of playroom to try and square this door frame up. Then to actually square it up, I just tapped on the bottom corner of the door that had the long measurement reading and just slowly manipulated it back so that when I remeasured it, both measurements were exactly the same. And I thought this was the best way to do it in this case, because if it meant that I didn't have to remove the glass, that would be a win, because having to pull these old and paper-thin glass panels out might have ended in tears. Not to mention that when glass is installed in doors like this, or any opening for that matter, there's always a small tolerance in the gap around the actual frame to the glass. So it meant that I was able to have enough playroom without having to take any glass out. So then you just saw me remeasuring again, making sure I've got the position perfect. And then once that's done, it was a case of fitting these brackets. To do this, I just sat the brackets on the frame, all 4 corners of the frame where I wanted them to be positioned, traced around them, and then it was router time. The goal here obviously being just to route out deep enough so that when the bracket sits back in there, it was nice and flush with the wooden frame, or the wooden door frame. So I felt with this job and to square the door up, this was the best option to try and brace the door and secure it in position long term, rather than pulling the whole door apart, because the frame of this door was all made quite well with mortise and tenon joins. So over time, they would obviously degrade, and I didn't really want to play with fire by pulling all that apart and possibly having to do a complete rebuild of the door frame itself. The reason I believe that is because, as you saw earlier, there was a bunch of screws that had been inserted into near on all the joins in the door frame, which meant that the joins may be further compromised. And adding to that, the fact that this door was also an exterior door probably wouldn't have gone well if I had have gone down any other road. So I felt this was the best option at the time. So to close this job out, I just needed to reinstall the wooden panels at the foot of the door. This would act as a little bit of further bracing, which was always a good thing considering the state of the door as it was. And then just refit the trims. The face you're looking at now is the inside face, and you can see a lot of water staining on the inside. So water was definitely coming through there and staining through the wood. So I thought it might be a good idea just to help prevent that from further happening by caulking around the perimeter and then just tacking in the trims just to further secure them in place. So now it was almost that time to rehang the door. This would prove to be a bit tricky, as these little pin hinges that it was hung from were very small, very strong, but very small, and proved a little bit tricky to align. So I called on trusty Steve to give me a bit of help with that. And that would be the master stroke to finish this one off. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.